I'm Alara, 29 years old, and 3 weeks ago I got married without my parents there. Years ago, my parents spent $127,000 on my brother Lucas's wedding, flew in relatives from 3 states, rented out a country club, hired a 12-piece band. But when I announced my engagement to Adrian, a man who loves me more than I ever believed possible, my father looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Follow my rules or pay for it yourself." So I paid for it myself. What my parents didn't expect was who would appear on my guest list: CEOs, partners at elite law firms, a former senator, people they had spent their entire lives trying to impress. And when the truth about their so-called wedding fund surfaced, well, let's just say some secrets don't stay buried forever. Before I continue, if you're enjoying this story, please take a moment to like and subscribe, only if you truly want to hear more. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. I love knowing who's listening. Now, let me take you back 6 months earlier, to the night Adrian got down on one knee. My name is Alara Hayes. I'm a senior accountant at a financial consulting firm in Boston. I have a corner office overlooking the harbor, a 401k that would make my college-age self cry with joy, and absolutely zero debt. I'm not telling you this to brag, but because it matters. For 29 years, my family treated me like I was one mistake away from needing to be rescued. My parents, Howard and Marlene Hayes, live in a 3-bedroom colonial in Worcester. Dad retired from middle management at a manufacturing company 5 years ago. Mom worked part-time in administration until I was in high school, then stopped. They're not poor, they're not wealthy, they're comfortably settled, the kind that comes with a paid-off mortgage and a Florida vacation every other year. My brother Lucas is 4 years older than me, the golden child, star quarterback in high school, business degree from UMass, sales manager at a tech company, which sounds far more impressive than his paycheck actually is. 3 years ago, Lucas married his college girlfriend, Vanessa. The wedding was at Hillcrest Country Club, 250 guests, prime rib and lobster, and ice sculpture shaped like their initials. My parents paid for every bit of it, $127,000. I know the exact number because my mother mentioned it at least 15 times during the reception. "We saved for this since Lucas was born," she told anyone who would listen, champagne glass in hand. "That's what parents do." I stood off to the side that night in a bridesmaid dress that wasn't even my color, watching my father give a speech about investing in family. And I thought, okay, when it's my turn, it'll be different. They'll see I'm worth investing in too. I was so naive. I met Adrian Clark at a financial compliance conference 2 years ago. He was there representing his law firm, Clark and Morrison LLP, and I was there trying to not fall asleep during a panel on tax code revisions. He caught me yawning. I caught him laughing at me for it. We ended up getting coffee, then dinner, then somehow talking until the hotel bar closed. Adrian is 32, a partner at his family's firm, sharp jaw, kind eyes, the type of quiet confidence that comes from never needing to prove himself. But what I love most is simple. He listens. When I speak, he actually hears me. His family is nothing like mine. The first time I met his mother, Margaret, was at their Beacon Hill home. I wore my best blazer and rehearsed conversation topics in the car. I was terrified. The house was beautiful, old money beautiful, with oil paintings and a library that smelled like leather and history. But Margaret answered the door herself, wearing a simple cashmere sweater and no makeup. She hugged me before I could even introduce myself. She said, "Adrian talks about you all the time. I feel like I already know you." Dinner wasn't catered. She cooked rosemary roast chicken, farmer's market vegetables, and a lemon tart she'd baked that afternoon. We ate in the kitchen, not the formal dining room, and she asked me about my work, my hobbies, my dreams. No one in my family had ever asked me about my dreams. When Adrian drove me home that night, I cried in the passenger seat. "What's wrong?" he asked, worried. "Nothing," I said. "That's the problem. Nothing's wrong. Your family is just, they're so kind." He squeezed my hand. "They already love you, Alara. You're family now." I didn't realize how much that would mean until later. Adrian proposed on a Thursday evening in October. Nothing flashy, just the two of us on the rooftop of our favorite restaurant, city lights shimmering below, his grandmother's ring resting in a velvet box. I said yes before he even finished asking. The next morning, I called my parents. My hands were shaking. Despite everything, despite years of being overlooked, I still wanted them to be happy for me. Mom, Dad, I have news. Adrian proposed. We're engaged. There was a pause. Then my mother actually squealed. I heard her calling my father. Howard, Alara's getting married. For a beautiful moment, it felt like things might finally be different. My mom asked about the ring. My dad asked about Adrian's job. They sounded proud. We'll support you, sweetheart, just like we did for Lucas. We'll help with the wedding. That night, she sent me an email. I still have it. I screenshotted the moment it arrived because something inside me, some instinct I didn't want to admit, told me I might need it someday. The email read, Ilara, your father and I talked. We want to contribute $100,000 toward your wedding, just like we promised when you were little. We're so happy for you. Love, Mom. $100,000, in writing, with a timestamp. I sat in my corner office staring at that email and let myself believe. I let myself think maybe I had been wrong all these years. Maybe they did value me like Lucas. Maybe I had been too sensitive, too quick to notice things that weren't really there. That belief lasted exactly 3 weeks. Sofia Ramirez has been my best friend since freshman year of college. She's also the most sought-after wedding planner in New England, owner of Velvet Vows, with a client list that includes tech billionaires and old money dynasties. But I knew her when she was a broke 22-year-old with nothing but a dream and no startup cash. Remember when I lent you that money? I asked over lunch the week after my engagement. She laughed, setting down her glass of sparkling water. We were sitting at a cafe in Back Bay, surrounded by women in Hermes scarves and men in tailored suits. Sophia blended right in. She had that effortless polish that made people assume she'd always been wealthy. Ilara, you gave me $15,000 with zero interest and told me to pay it back whenever. That wasn't a loan. That was a lifeline. Well, I said, I'm calling in my favor. I need a wedding planner. Her eyes lit up. Finally, I've been waiting for this moment for 2 years. Tell me everything. Theme, venue, guest count. I told her the vision Adrian and I had already discussed. Intimate, elegant, child-free. About 80 guests. An outdoor ceremony at a Napa vineyard where Adrian's family had connections. Child-free, Sophia repeated, nodding. Smart. Nothing destroys a ceremony faster than a screaming toddler during the vows. Then she hesitated. Your family is pretty traditional, right? That could be a problem. I waved her off. They'll understand. My parents want this to be special. Mom already emailed about helping with the budget. Sophia looked at me with something close to sympathy. Ilara, I've been doing this for 8 years. Traditional families and child-free weddings almost never mix well. I should have listened. The dinner was my father's idea. Come over Sunday, he said on the phone. Your mother's making pot roast. We'll talk about the wedding. I brought Adrian. He wore a button-down and his most diplomatic smile. My parents' dining room hadn't changed since I was a kid. The same faded wallpaper, the same buzzing fluorescent light, the same framed photo of Lucas's high school football glory days on the wall. We barely made it through appetizers before my father cleared his throat. We've given this a lot of thought, he said, pulling a folded sheet of paper from his pocket, and we've put together some guidelines for the wedding. Guidelines. He smoothed the paper on the table. I recognized his handwriting, tight and precise, the same penmanship he used on my childhood report cards. Rule 1, he read, all family must be invited, both sides. That means your great-aunt Marge, cousin Tommy's kids, the Hendersons from church, everyone. I felt Adrian tense beside me. Rule 2, no child-free wedding. Children are family. Rule 3, no destination wedding. It stays local. Rule 4, we have final approval over the guest list. Rule 5, The ceremony will be at St. Catherine's. It's where my mother and I were married. He looked up, satisfied, like he'd just delivered a reasonable business proposal. My mother nodded. These were the same rules Lucas followed. It's only fair. I stared at the list. 200 guests, a church I hadn't put foot in since high school, every screaming child and judgmental relative I'd spent my adult life avoiding. And if I don't agree? I asked quietly. My father's expression didn't change. Then you pay for it yourself. I tried. God, I tried. Dad, the child-free policy isn't about excluding anyone, I said calmly. Adrian's nephew ruined his best friend's ceremony last year, knocked over the unity candle, cried through the vows. The couple was devastated. We just want to avoid that. My father didn't blink. Children are family. Okay, what about a compromise? Kids at the reception, just not the ceremony? No. Adrian squeezed my knee under the table. A warning. 200 people is a lot, I said. What if we invited immediate family and close friends, maybe 100? My mother let out a sharp laugh. 100? Ilara, I already told Aunt Marge, Uncle Tom, the Hendersons, the Fitzgeralds. Wait, you already told them? She looked faintly uncomfortable. Well, yes, people asked. I couldn't say nothing. You invited people to my wedding without even asking me? I didn't invite them, my father cut in. I told them they'd be receiving invitations, which they will. That's not negotiable. I leaned back. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. Adrian's hand tightened on my knee. My mother had made promises on my behalf to people I barely knew. My father had written rules, actual rules for my own wedding. Lucas didn't have to follow these, I said quietly. My father's face hardened. Lucas understands family values. It wasn't an answer. Lucas is my son, he snapped. He carries the family name. You're marrying into another family now. The Clarks will be your family. That's how it works. There it was. Because I was the daughter, I was worth less. In the background, I heard my mother whisper, Howard, tell her she's being dramatic. Mom, I said, cutting in, I heard you, and I'm not being dramatic. I'm being clear. My father exhaled. Final offer. Accept the conditions or fund it yourself. I thought about my mother's email. The $100,000 promise, the timestamp, Lucas's accidental confession, the fund that existed for him and never for me. And I thought about Margaret Clark, who hugged me the first day we met and asked about my dreams. I understand, Dad, I said. I'll fund it myself. Then I hung up before he could reply. Adrian found me on the couch that evening, still in my rec clothes, staring into nothing. He sat beside me without speaking, just there, waiting until I was ready. They never planned to help me, I said at last. The promise, the email, it was all conditional from the beginning. They wanted control, not to support me. Adrian wrapped an arm around me. Then we do this ourselves. We don't need their money, Ilara. We have each other. It's not about the money, my voice cracked. It's that they think I'm worth less than Lucas. They always have, and I kept hoping I was wrong. The next morning, Margaret called. Adrian told me what happened, she said. Her voice was warm, concerned, but never pitying. I want you to know something. When I married James, my own parents disapproved. They thought I was marrying beneath them, a young lawyer with no connections. They refused to contribute to our wedding. I blinked. I didn't know that. James's mother gave us $10,000. It was everything she had. She told me, love doesn't come with conditions. I never forgot that. She paused. Ilara, I'd like to give you $50,000 for your wedding. No rules, no strings. This isn't charity. It's what family does. And you are family. Margaret, I can't. You can, she said gently, but firmly. Someone did this for me once. Now I'm doing it for you. Please let me. A week later, a check arrived with a handwritten note on thick ivory paper. Love doesn't come with conditions. Welcome to the family, sweetheart. Margaret. I cried for an hour, but for the first time in weeks, they were good tears. If you've made it this far, you might understand that feeling. The moment you realize your family's love came with an asterisk you never knew existed. Let me be clear. Adrian and I could have paid for this wedding twice over. The money was never the point. The point was that Lucas got $127,000 with smiles and champagne toasts, while I got conditions and ultimatums. This was never about money. It was about whether I mattered as much as my brother, and I had my answer. Now back to 3 months before the wedding. The call started the week after I told my father I'd pay for it myself. First, it was Aunt Marge. "Alara, sweetheart, your mother says you're not inviting family. That can't be true." Then Uncle Tom. "I hear you're doing some exclusive thing. No kids?" Then Darlene Henderson from church, someone I hadn't spoken to in 15 years. "Your poor mother is beside herself. She says you shut her out." I tried to explain. Child-free was common. We wanted an intimate ceremony. This wasn't rejection. No one listened. My phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls, voicemails, texts from cousins I barely remembered, all asking the same thing. How could you do this to your parents? Then my mother went to Facebook. She didn't use my name. She didn't need to. It breaks my heart when children forget everything their parents sacrificed. We gave everything, and this is how we're repaid. Prayers appreciated. Within an hour, it had 47 comments. Relatives I hadn't seen in decades offering sympathy, church friends expressing shock, a cousin writing, "So sorry, Aunt Marlene, some kids just don't understand family values." I sat in my office watching the notifications pour in. My mother had turned my wedding into a public trial of my character before I'd even sent invitations. Adrian found me scrolling at midnight. "Turn it off," he said gently. "They're performing. This isn't about you. It's about them playing martyrs." He was right. It still hurt. My mother showed up at my office the next Tuesday. I was in a meeting when my assistant knocked, face apologetic. "There's a woman at reception. She says it's your mother. She's making a scene." I walked into the lobby. My mother stood at the desk, tissues in hand, mascara streaked down her cheeks. 3 coworkers watched from the hallway. "Mom, what are you doing?" "Alara," she grabbed my arm. "Please, we need to talk." The receptionist, Chloe, 24, 3 months on the job, stared wide-eyed. "Let's go to the conference room," I said quietly. I led her down the glass-lined hall, feeling every stare. Her heels clicked sharply on the marble. The moment the door closed, the tears vanished. "You need to change your mind," she said. "Your father can't sleep. I can't eat. You're destroying this family. You posted about me online. You called relatives. You left me no choice. You're embarrassing us," she snapped. "Everyone knows about your ridiculous child-free rule." "Then tell them the truth," I said. "Tell them you offered me money with demands and I said no." Her eyes narrowed. "That's a selfish way to see it." "Please leave," I said. "Not here." I held the door open. As she stepped out, she turned. "You'll regret this, Alara. Mark my words." My father's email arrived that Friday. Subject, final words. He listed every sacrifice they'd made, braces, insurance, driving to my graduation, as if basic parenting was some heroic act. Then the final paragraph. "You've chosen Adrian and his wealthy family over the people who raised you. If you continue this wedding without our conditions, we will not attend. Consider yourself no longer part of this family." I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to Adrian and to his friend Michael, a family law attorney. "Keep it," Michael told me. "Documentation matters." I printed the email and filed it. Right beside my mother's original $100,000 promise. 2 timestamps, one offering love, one threatening abandonment. The gap between those two emails told the entire story of my family better than I ever could. That night, Adrian held me while I stared at the ceiling. "What do you want to do?" he asked softly. "I want to have our wedding," I said. "Our way. And I want to stop pretending they'll ever change." I wrote my response at 2 a.m. Adrian slept beside me, one arm draped over my waist. The room was dark except for the glow of my laptop. "Dad, I've read your email. I understand your position, and I respect your right to make your own choices. The wedding will proceed as planned. You and Mom are welcome to attend as guests. There will be no special roles, no speeches, no reserved parents of the bride seating, but you are welcome. I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this because accepting your conditions would mean beginning my marriage by abandoning my own boundaries. I can't do that. I hope you'll reconsider. I hope you'll choose to be part of this day, even if it isn't on your terms. But I won't beg. Love, Ilara." I hit send. His reply came 10 minutes later. "If we can't be treated as your parents, we won't be there. This is your choice, not ours. Remember that." I closed the laptop. In the darkness, I felt the weight of it all. I had drawn a line, and they had stepped away. Adrian stirred. "Hey, what happened?" I told them they could come as guests. They refused. He pulled me closer. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." I was surprised to realize I wasn't crying. "I'm sad, but I'm not sorry." There was something strangely peaceful about it. No more hoping, no more waiting for them to change. The weeks after were brutal. I woke at 3 in the morning with my heart racing. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm the villain? What if I destroyed my family over a guest list? The calls stopped. The silence was worse. I lost 6 pounds. Adrian started making me smoothies because I couldn't handle solid food before noon. One night, I sobbed in the bathroom so hard I couldn't breathe, while he waited helplessly outside. "I don't know if I'm doing the right thing," I gasped. I kept remembering the good moments. Dad teaching me to ride a bike, Mom braiding my hair, the gold Seiko watch he gave me at graduation, still in its velvet box on my dresser. Was I selfish? Was I punishing them for not loving me the way I needed? One morning, I typed a message to my mother. "Can we talk? Maybe there's a middle ground." I stared at it for 20 minutes. Then I deleted it, remembering the Facebook post, the relatives, the office scene, the email threatening to cut me off. This wasn't about a wedding. It was about control. And if I gave in now, I always would. Lucas texted me that Sunday. "Can we get coffee? I want to help." We met near Fenway. He looked tired, his golden child shine long gone. "Mom and Dad are really hurting. They feel abandoned." "Did they send you?" He didn't answer. "They sent me an email saying I'm out of the family. I offered to let them come. They refused." "Maybe just give a little. Invite a few cousins." "Lucas," I leaned forward, "did they give you rules?" He looked away. "No," I said, "because you're the son. I'm just the daughter who's supposed to accept scraps." "That's not fair." "Maybe, but it's true." When he left, he said, "Once you burn this bridge, there's no going back." The bridge was already burning. I just hadn't lit the match. That night, Adrian said gently, "Do you actually want to give in?" "No," I said instantly. "I don't." "Then don't." "You are not the problem," he whispered. "You never were." The next morning, Margaret called. "When I married James, my parents didn't speak to me for 3 years. I survived by remembering I wasn't rejecting them, they were rejecting me." "You're not destroying anything," she added softly. "You're just refusing to pretend the cracks weren't already there." That night, I looked at our engagement photo, Adrian and me laughing under golden leaves in Boston Common. I didn't need permission to be happy. I just had to give it to myself. Sophia spread the wedding plans across her table. "Okay," she said, smiling, "let's build your dream wedding." The venue, a private vineyard in Napa Valley. The guest list, 85 people. No obligations, no guilt, no screaming kids. Just love. Exactly the way it should be. The budget came to $90,000. Adrian and I put in $40,000 from our savings. Margaret's gift covered the remaining $50,000. Sophia, true to her word, was charging only her costs, her usual $30,000 fee included as her wedding gift to us. "Child-free?" Sophia confirmed. "Child-free ceremony at sunset," she said, smiling. "Golden hour, Adrian's one request. This is going to be my finest work. You know that, right?" I studied the mood board she'd created. Clean lines, white florals, soft lighting, elegant simplicity. Nothing gaudy, nothing forced, just beauty. "What about your family?" she asked carefully. "Any changes?" I shook my head. They made their choice. "Okay," she jotted a note. "I'll have security briefed just in case. Sometimes people show up uninvited." I blinked. "You'd think they'd try to crash it?" "I think people do strange things when they realize they're not in control," she said, peering at me over her glasses. "Hope for the best, plan for the worst." The thought unsettled me, but Sophia had done this for 8 years. She knew things I didn't. That night, reviewing the guest lists, I realized something. This wasn't just a list of invitees. It was a map of the life I'd built. On Adrian's side, the managing partner of Clark & Morrison, a federal judge who'd mentored him in law school, 3 rival firm partners who'd become close friends, a Fortune 500 CEO, and a client he'd represented in a massive merger. On mine, my business school mentor, now a Harvard professor, 2 coworkers who'd become true friends, a former client who'd started a nonprofit with my guidance, and Margaret's circle, philanthropists, arts patrons, even a former senator from her foundation's board. At the bottom were 5 family names. Cousin Sarah, Lucas's daughter, always kind, my mother's second cousin, Paula, who'd sent me a supportive text, 3 other relatives who hadn't joined the pile-on, and Carol Bennett. Carol was 60, a retired accountant who'd worked with my mother decades ago. They still exchanged Christmas cards, lunches now and then. Carol was sharp, observant, and my mother had always confided in her about money and plans. I wasn't inviting Carol to cause drama. I was inviting her because truth has a way of surfacing when the right people are in the room. The invitations went out on a Thursday. Sarah posted hers on Instagram. That's how my mother found out. Within an hour, my phone rang. "You invited Sarah, but not her mother?" my mom snapped. "You invited your cousin's daughter, but not your own aunt?" "I invited people who supported me," I said calmly, watching the Boston skyline glow orange from my balcony. "Aunt Susan spent months calling me ungrateful. Sarah sent me an apology. This is calculated. You're doing this to hurt us." "I'm doing this to have the wedding I want. You made your choice." A sharp breath. "Where even is this vineyard? How are you affording Napa Valley?" I didn't answer. "Who's paying for this?" she demanded. "The Clarks? Are you letting your in-laws pay for what your own parents should be paying for?" Should be, as if they hadn't withdrawn it. "The Clarks have been generous. So have my friends. That's all I'll say." Silence. Then, softer. "Ilara, maybe we should talk in person. Work something out. The invitation stands. Guests only." "That's not good enough." "Then I'm sorry." I hung up. But I'd learned something. They were watching, and they were starting to worry. Later, Sarah told me what happened next. My mother started investigating. She Googled Margaret, found the foundation website, the board filled with powerful names. She found articles about James Clark, the late federal judge. She looked up Adrian on LinkedIn, partner at 32, Harvard Law, Boston Globe features. Then she looked up the vineyard. She called me panicking, like, "Do you know what that place costs? Do you know who gets married there?" My father called the next evening. His voice was softer, calculated. "Ilara, maybe we were too hasty. Your mother and I think we should talk, perhaps dinner this weekend." "What changed?" I asked. "Nothing," he said quickly. "We've just reflected. Family is family." Family is family. The phrase they'd used to control me, now used to reel me back. "You're welcome as guests, nothing more." A long pause. "That's your final answer?" "Yes." "That's always been my answer, Dad. It hasn't changed." He hung up without a word. The wedding was 3 weeks away, and my parents were finally realizing they were on the outside of something they couldn't control. By now, I knew what was coming. My parents weren't suddenly seeking reconciliation because their hearts had softened. They were recalibrating strategy. They'd seen the guest list, the venue, the life I was building without them, and they wanted in. But would they accept my terms? Would they even show? And what would happen when they discovered what Carol Bennett knew? Keep watching. The rehearsal dinner is next. Drop a comment with your prediction. I'd love to hear what you think happened. The rehearsal dinner was meant to be intimate. 30 people at a Michelin-starred restaurant overlooking the Napa vineyards. Close friends, immediate family, the people who truly mattered. So my heart stopped when I saw them walk through the door. My mother wore her finest dress, the one saved for funerals and other formal occasions. My father had on a tie. They looked almost humble, standing in the foyer while the hostess scanned her seating chart, visibly confused. "I am the mother of the bride," my mother said. "There must be some mistake." Nathan's hand tightened on my arm. Conversations faltered around us. Eleanor glanced up from her champagne, expression unreadable. "I'll handle this," I said, walking forward. My heels clicked against the hardwood. Every eye followed. "Mom, Dad, I weren't on the guest list for tonight." "We're your parents, Myra." My mother's voice trembled, performative distress. "We have every right to be here. We flew 3,000 miles. You weren't invited. We're here to support you. Isn't that what you wanted?" Sophia appeared beside me, tablet in hand. "Ma'am, sir, may I speak with you privately for a moment?" My father sneered. "We don't need privacy. We need to be led into our daughter's event." Eleanor rose gracefully, moving across the room like water, impossible to ignore. "Richard, Linda, perhaps we can discuss this in the private dining room. I'd hate for this to become a scene." My father looked at Eleanor, her pearls, her posture, quiet authority, and some of his bluster drained. "Fine," he said tightly. "Let's talk." The private dining room was small, a table for 6, wine bottles lining the walls, soft light that couldn't soften the tension. My parents sat on one side, Adrian, Eleanor, and I on the other. My father spoke first. "We came to support our daughter, that's all." "You came uninvited," I said, "after sending me an email threatening to cut me off if I didn't obey your conditions. Was that a misunderstanding?" I held up my phone. "Would you like me to read it?" "If you proceed with this wedding without following our conditions, we will not attend and you can forget being part of this family." His face went pale. My mother interjected. "We were hurt. We said things we didn't mean." "Then why didn't you apologize? Why show up at my office, post on Facebook, recruit relatives to pressure me?" Silence. Eleanor's voice was gentle. "Richard, Linda, I understand this is difficult. Letting go of control over your children is one of the hardest things a parent can do. But conditions, ultimatums, public shaming, that's not support, that's coercion." My mother snapped. With all due respect, Mrs. Whitmore, this is none of your business. Eleanor is our family now, she said simply. That makes it my business. She's our daughter. Then act like it. Her tone didn't sharpen, but it made my mother fall silent. Being a parent isn't control. It's showing up for your child, even when they make choices you don't understand. Myra invited you as guests. She's still inviting you. Can you accept that? My father stared at the table. My mother's eyes were wet, real tears this time. Neither spoke. Finally, my father stood. We won't be humiliated like this. If we can't be recognized as your parents, we won't play pretend. Nobody's asking you to pretend, Dad. I'm asking you to be present on terms that respect both of us. He shook his head. You've made your choice. You chose the Whitmores. You chose a crowd of strangers over your own flesh and blood. I chose a wedding that reflects my values. If you can't accept that, we can't. My mother rose, gathering her purse. We won't be treated like ordinary guests when we're your parents. She looked at Eleanor with something like hatred. I hope you're happy. You've turned our daughter against us. No one turned me against you, I said quietly. I made my own choice. I wish you could see the difference. My mother's lip trembled. You'll regret this, Myra. On your wedding day, when you look for us and we're not there, you'll regret it. She turned and walked out. My father followed. The door clicked shut. Nathan wrapped his arm around me. Eleanor reached across and squeezed my hand. I'm sorry, she murmured. Don't be. My voice was steady, but inside something ached. They made their choice just as I made mine. We returned to the main dining room. Guests resumed their conversations, though several eyes followed us. Carol Bennett sat near the end of the table, a glass of wine in hand. Our eyes met. She gave me a small, understanding nod, as if she knew what was coming, as if she already knew what I didn't. The rest of the rehearsal dinner passed in a blur. Toasts, laughter, clinking glasses, but my mind kept drifting to my parents' retreating backs. Nathan gave a speech. Eleanor gave a speech. Jessica corralled everyone for a group photo on the terrace, the vineyard stretching golden and infinite behind us. You okay? Nathan asked quietly as we posed. Yeah, I smiled for the camera. I think I am. Later that night, alone in our resort room while Nathan slept, I stared at the ceiling. I thought about what my mother had said. You'll regret this. But I already knew the truth. I would regret it if they stayed away. I would regret it if they came and made a scene. I would regret it no matter what, because there was no version of this story where everyone got what they wanted. The only thing I could control was whether I regretted my own choices. And I didn't. Not the boundaries I'd set, not the guest list I'd made, not the wedding I'd planned with Nathan in our real family, the one we'd chosen. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Sarah. OMG, your mom just called my mom. She's furious. She keeps saying, wait until they find out. Find out what? I stared at the message. What could my mother possibly think she knew that would change anything? I typed back, no idea, but thanks for the heads up. Tomorrow was my wedding day. Whatever my mother thought she had left to play, I would deal with it then. Tonight, I just wanted to sleep. For the first time in months, I actually could. Morning arrived with sunshine streaming through the curtains and the distant pop of uncorked champagne. Jessica appeared with her team at 8 a.m. sharp. Hairstylist, makeup artist, a woman whose only job seemed to be steaming my dress until it was perfect. Today is your day, Jessica said, handing me a mimosa. Whatever happened yesterday, forget it. Today is about you and Nathan. I let them fuss over me. My dress was Monique Luyere, a gift from Eleanor, deceptively simple, the kind of understated elegance only true luxury can achieve. French lace, silk lining, a train that whispered across the floor. At 4 p.m., I stood in the bridal suite doorway, staring at my reflection. The woman looking back wasn't just in the dress. She was calm, certain, ready. The ceremony began at 5 p.m. 85 guests gathered on the stone terrace as the sun dipped behind the vineyard hills. White roses lined the aisle, a string quartet playing something soft and aching. Nathan waited under a pergola draped with greenery and fairy lights. When he saw me, his eyes shimmered with tears. I walked down the aisle alone, no father to give me away. I hadn't asked anyone to fill that role. I didn't need giving. I was giving myself, freely, to the man I loved. In the front row, 2 chairs remained empty. My parents, just in case. As I took Nathan's hands, looking into his eyes, I realized I wasn't sad anymore. I was free. The reception sparkled. Dinner under the stars, fairy lights strung above long tables, wine flowing from the vineyard cellar. I danced with Eleanor when Sarah found me. "Myra," she tugged my elbow, "you need to hear this. Carol Bennett just told me something crazy." I excused myself and followed Sarah to a quiet corner of the garden. Carol stood there, wine glass in hand, looking troubled. "I'm sorry to bring this up on your wedding day, but I've been sitting on it for hours and it's eating me alive." "What is it?" I asked. Carol took a breath. "Your mother and I worked together for 15 years. We were close. She told me things about money, about family plans." I nodded. I already knew a little. "A few years ago, she told me about a fund, a savings account set up when the kids were young for their weddings." My stomach dropped. "She told me the amount, $150,000. They'd been adding to it since Derek was a toddler. 50,000 for college, 100,000 for weddings, split evenly." "Split evenly?" I whispered. Carol shook her head. "That's what she said. But then I heard what's been happening. They paid over $127,000 for Derek's wedding and told you there was no fund? That can't be right." I leaned against the trellis, heart pounding. 150,000 split evenly. Derek got 127,000. I got nothing. "I'm so sorry, Myra," Carol said softly. "I thought you should know." She hadn't meant to stir drama. She was just Carol, honest to a fault, the kind of person who couldn't let hypocrisy stand unchallenged. When she returned to the table and Aunt Paula asked why she looked so serious, she told her. Words spread like wine spilling across a white tablecloth. By the time I cut the cake with Nathan, I noticed the whispers. 150,000. Told Carol years ago. They gave Derek everything. No wonder they didn't come. Nathan's partner, Michael, approached us, expression grave. "Myra, I just heard something from a guest about a family fund." "It's true," I said quietly. "Mom told Carol Bennett years ago. They had money for both of us. They just chose to spend it all on Derek, and then had the nerve to put conditions on giving me anything." The truth I'd suspected, the accidental confirmation from Derek, was now spreading through the wedding like wildfire. And I hadn't done anything to make it happen. I hadn't exposed them. I hadn't confronted them. I'd just invited Carol Bennett to my wedding, the same Carol my mother trusted with family secrets, the one who believed truth should never be hidden. Sometimes justice doesn't require revenge. Sometimes you just step aside and let the truth do its work. 3,000 miles away, my parents' phones were ringing. I learned later from Sarah, who'd called her mother, who'd immediately called mine after hearing Carol's story. "Is it true?" Aunt Susan demanded. "Did you really have $150,000 saved? Did you give Derek all of it and nothing to Myra?" My mother, I was told, tried to lie. Carol misunderstood. It wasn't like that. "Linda, Carol is a certified accountant," Aunt Susan said sharply. She remembered numbers. She remembered you bragging about the fund at lunch 10 years ago. It was our money. We had the right to decide. You had the right to lie to your daughter, to pretend there was nothing when there was plenty. My father got on the phone, trying his stern voice. This is a private family matter. Private? Aunt Susan laughed. You made it public when you put Linda's Facebook sob story in front of everyone. You made it public when you called every relative to complain about Myra's choices. And now you're caught, Richard. Everyone knows. The calls kept coming. Uncle Tom, Cousin Paula, even Carol herself ringing to say she hoped she hadn't caused too much trouble, but she couldn't stay silent when she knew the truth. Meanwhile, I danced with my husband under the stars, blissfully unaware. I didn't know about the phone calls yet. I didn't know my mother was crying in her living room in Massachusetts while I laughed at toasts in Napa Valley. I only knew I was happy, surrounded by people who loved me, not conditionally, not with calculations. And somewhere deep in my mind, I realized this was never about revenge. It was about freedom. Nathan and I spent 2 weeks in Italy for our honeymoon, the Amalfi Coast, just as we dreamed. Crumbling villas, lemon trees like paintings, phones off for most of it. Peace. When we landed back in Boston, reality hit hard. 17 missed calls from Derek, 4 from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, a voicemail from Carol apologizing for stirring things up, and 1 text from my mother. You've destroyed this family. I hope you're proud of yourself. I stared at the screen a long moment. Then I put my phone away and went home with my husband. Over the next few days, I learned what had happened while we were gone. The family had splintered. Aunts who had defended my mother now questioned everything. Cousins who had called me ungrateful were reassessing loyalties. Derek got the worst of it, his wife, Brittany, asking hard questions. If your parents gave you $127,000 for the wedding, where did that money actually come from? She asked him. People keep asking why he got everything and you got nothing, Sarah told me over lunch. Is that my fault? I asked. No, Sarah said. It's theirs for putting him in that position. My mother deactivated her Facebook. My father stopped answering calls from extended family. They hadn't reached out to me, not once, not to apologize, not to explain. The silence said everything. And as much as it hurt, it still did. It no longer broke me. I had built a life of my own. I had chosen my family. I was free. Months passed. The scandal, the Wells family drama, faded into an uncomfortable silence. My parents' influence as family elders diminished. Cousins stopped asking their advice. Derek and Brittany wrestled with questions long ignored. I wasn't satisfied by revenge. I was simply tired. One afternoon, I found myself at my desk, holding the velvet box with the gold Seiko my father had given me at graduation. I opened it. The watch face caught the light. Not expensive, not like Eleanor's, but it had meant something once, a moment when my father had looked at me with pride. I closed the box and returned it to the drawer. Some wounds don't heal by destroying the things that caused them. They heal by acknowledging what was, mourning what could have been, and choosing to move forward anyway. Nathan and I spent 2 weeks in Italy for our honeymoon, the Amalfi Coast, just as we dreamed. Crumbling villas, lemon trees like paintings, phones off for most of it. Peace. When we landed back in Boston, reality hit hard. 17 missed calls from Derek, 4 from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, a voicemail from Carol apologizing for stirring things up, and 1 text from my mother. You've destroyed this family. I hope you're proud of yourself. I stared at the screen a long moment. Then I put my phone away and went home with my husband. Over the next few days, I learned what had happened while we were gone. The family had splintered. Aunts who had defended my mother now questioned everything. Cousins who had called me ungrateful were reassessing loyalties. Derek got the worst of it, his wife, Brittany, asking hard questions. If your parents gave you $127,000 for the wedding, where did that money actually come from? She asked him. People keep asking why he got everything and you got nothing, Sarah told me over lunch. Is that my fault? I asked. No, Sarah said, it's theirs for putting him in that position. My mother deactivated her Facebook. My father stopped answering calls from extended family. They hadn't reached out to me, not once, not to apologize, not to explain. The silence said everything. And as much as it hurt, it still did. It no longer broke me. I had built a life of my own. I had chosen my family. I was free. Months passed. The scandal, the Wells family drama, faded into an uncomfortable silence. My parents' influence as family elders diminished. Cousins stopped asking their advice. Derek and Brittany wrestled with questions long ignored. I wasn't satisfied by revenge. I was simply tired. One afternoon, I found myself at my desk, holding the velvet box with the gold Seiko my father had given me at graduation. I opened it. The watch face caught the light. Not expensive, not like Eleanor's, but it had meant something once, a moment when my father had looked at me with pride. I closed the box and returned it to the drawer. Some wounds don't heal by destroying the things that caused them. They heal by acknowledging what was, mourning what could have been, and choosing to move forward anyway. Nathan and I found me staring out the window that evening, the city lights of Boston glittering below. Thinking about them? Asked Nathan. Sometimes, I admitted. Is that strange? No, I said. He wrapped his arms around me from behind. They're still your parents, he said. That doesn't go away. No, I agreed. It doesn't. I don't know if my parents will ever change. Part of me still hopes they will. Part of me has accepted they won't. What I do know is this. I spent 29 years trying to earn something that should have been given freely. Love, acceptance, the simple acknowledgement that I was worth as much as my brother. I bent myself into shapes to please them. I made myself small. I accepted conditions, ultimatums, casual cruelties because I thought that's just how families worked. It took losing them to realize I'd never really had them, not the way I wanted, not the way I deserved. But here's the thing about building your own family. You get to choose. Nathan chose me. Eleanor chose me. Jessica chose me. Carol Bennett chose me in her own way by refusing to let lies stand. And I chose myself. That's the real ending. Not revenge, not triumph, not even justice. Just freedom. Freedom to set boundaries and enforce them. Freedom to love people who love you back without asterisks. Freedom to walk down an aisle alone because you don't need to be given away. If you're watching and you're in a similar situation, if your family makes you feel unworthy, if their love comes with conditions, know this. You are worthy of unconditional love, and if they can't give it, you have the right to find it elsewhere. You have the right to build your own family. You have the right to choose yourself. I'm Myra Wells. I'm 29, and I finally know what it means to be free. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story resonated, if you've ever had to choose yourself over someone else's expectations, like and share this video. Subscribe for more stories like this. Leave a comment below. I want to hear your story. We're all in this together.